You're one microscopic cog in his catastrophic plan, designed and directed by his red right hand.
Sure is quiet.
God, look at this place. It's the town that dreaded sundown.
Yeah, I saw that movie. It's about a killer in Texas, huh?
Hi, huge movie fanatic Nate, continuing my wonderful fall 2014 Spookorama Horror Thon Fest review bunch of stuff. I'm here to review a movie that I, formally reviewed the trailer for the sequel slash remake slash reboot slash whatever the hell it is of recently, which is the Town That Dreaded Sundown. Now I can't remember exactly when I saw this movie. I think I saw it probably in 1991 for the very first time, back when it was on just Warner Home Video, and it was, of course, Pan and Scan. This is like a scope movie, which would be, I don't know what it officially is in, but it's like Panavision. It's the what I call wide. It's not just 185, the size of your, HD TV. It's wider, where you're going to have a little bit of black bars on your HD TV. So it's one of them wide ones, and like Halloween, So obviously, the copy that I grew up with was cropped, as all the widescreen movies were in the 80s and 90s on VHS. So, it's kind of crummy in that aspect, of course. And I remember, what's interesting is, I remember liking things about it and not liking things about it. And what's interesting, when I first saw it, and what's interesting is, like, it really hasn't, my feeling about the Town That Dreaded Sundown in 1976 really hasn't changed at all. From when I first saw it to when I just recently rewatched it within the last several days. It's got cool elements, but I don't know, it's a really low budget movie that kind of shows in this Charles B. Pierce, who had formerly made, which I also have on Pan and Scan crap DVD, The Legend of Boggy Creek, which is something he did before this, as far as I know, which is almost like this weird documentary. It's just kind of weird and dumb at the same time, and got a lot of goofy songs, and this character who shot part of his foot off in a boating accident, and it's just like, it's got a lot of smart people featured in the movie. So, and it's got people that spit. I remember this one thing in Boggy Creek, if I can quickly segue, this guy, they're sitting by a wood burning stove or something, this guy goes and spits like on the stove or something. The movie's full of just basically toothless hicks, and just the Boggy Creek, and it's just kind of funny. So maybe that's probably on YouTube in its entirety, The Legend of Boggy Creek, I would imagine, because it's, I think it's maybe public domain. It's just one of those movies that I'm sure is on YouTube, so be sure to check that out. It's kind of, it's just, oh my gosh, it's goofy. So anyway, back to the Town That Dreaded Sundown. There's things I like and things I don't like about it. We'll start off with the things I like. Obviously, the killer, which is obviously before Jason Voorhees, before he appeared at all, let alone appeared in Friday the 13th Part 2, is really, 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 like, iconic, and the hooded, killer, and the eyes holes that are cut in the hood look really cool, where it makes him look evil somehow. The eye holes are cut in a way where it makes the hood look evil. It's kind of really cool in that aspect. And the like the event scenes, or the whatever you want to call it, kill scenes, or just terror scenes when the guy is terrorizing these people parking, are really kind of, even 37 years later, are really kind of cool, because I don't think that generally the music is necessarily playing. I think that good old Charles B. Pierce, or whoever decided to do so, dropped the music, or had no music playing on the majority of the event scenes, where it makes it really, like, spookily, like, realistic when you see this stuff happening just at night, with just the ambient night sounds and no music, and the guys, like, particularly the guys trying to crawl away, and he crawls up the fence, and the Phantom, which I think is kind of what he's called, takes the gun, he's like, pfft, and he's like, ah! It's like, pfft, ah! And with no music, it just has this really creepy ass realism about it, almost documentary-ish, like it's really happening. So this movie is based on an event which is said to have actually happened around this time, like right in 46, did they say? I can't remember. In Texarkana or whatever, where this guy terrorized, basically what happens in the movie, terrorized people parking on Lover's Lane, and kills the guys and bites the tits and the back and stomach of women and ties up on a tree. And supposedly, I mean, this case was never solved, even to this day, and all this kind of stuff. So it's based on something that's, is said to have really happened, which is whatever. And so one thing, this is a particularly low-budget movie, and one thing, having watched it or rewatched it as an adult and understanding, a huge movie fanatic, and understanding, and also having made my own independent videos and shorts and movies and stuff, you really watch it now with eyes of wow, and especially like widescrreen, being able to see the whole frame. And for being low budget, they sure managed to wrangle up all kinds of period cars, like old cars. I mean, there's frames, there's shots where there's got to be like, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 old cars in the same shot at the same time, because they have to litter the whole town in the town shots that briefly are featured in the movie with these old cars. I mean, there's so many old cars in this movie, I can't even count them. And obviously the wardrobe and all this and that. So for being a relatively low budget movie, which I think was like $400,000 or something like that, which I think was more than Halloween would end up being, I can't remember. And they really managed to they probably spent all the money on those car rentals and wardrobe. They really managed to get a look that was obviously authentic to the time. So the pluses are just the what I'd call event scenes, and obviously which are really creepy and moody and atmospheric, and obviously Ben Johnson. I'm a huge fan of, well, maybe not a huge fan, but I generally like Ben Johnson and everything I see him in, as people who worked with him talked about, that basically what you see on screen is just the real deal, it's basically Ben Johnson, who he really is who he is on screen. And you can kind of tell that, because in every movie he's basically the same character, so he's basically just reading lines as himself. So you got Ben Johnson, which is a huge cast point in this movie, and an actor that I grew up with in Eliminators, Andrew Prine, I believe is how you say it, who obviously was in this movie before he was in Eliminators, but I grew up with him from Eliminators, so 1991 probably is when I saw this. I'm like, oh cool. I think that guy was a kind of a cool, he was in Grizzly as well, and I don't know, he's just kind of like one of them Jimmy Stewart people who are just genuine as well, like Ben Johnson, just come across in a just generally likable way in movies. So, it's a boon for me, in my opinion, to have Andrew Prine in the movie as well. Then you have a bit part where I think Don Wells plays the last victim, who was shot through the face or whatever, which is really that scene's pretty creepy. And I think that's the last event scene where he tries to stalk people, and it's really creepy when, again, with no music, when he appears out the window and shoots the guy in the head, and it's like the bullet hole in the glass, and then he shoots him again, and she's like, Don Wells in the other room, did you break something? And it's just like, no, but the Phantom did. So, okay, those were the positives. So the negatives is just I don't know, it does reek of kind of low budget, just I don't know, whateverness about it. And obviously one of the things that really gives away a lower budget production, depending on what your sound guy's talents are, is just what happens in this movie and in some of the indoor scenes with dialogue, where it seems like the microphone's on the other side of the room than from the actor, and it's just this echoey rah, 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 we're gonna find a killer, and it's just almost, I mean, the movie is almost shot somewhat in a way, I don't know, it's really weird how his movies, I've only seen two of them, feel like documentaries, even though that this one in particular is basically not a documentary. Oh, that's another thing I don't want to forget to mention, is the guy who narrates it. Having grown up in the 80s, this guy, I watched all kinds of nature shows back on TV in the day about all kinds of stuff, and this guy narrated all kinds of stuff, whoever the hell he is, all kinds of nature shows and all kinds of this and that. So when every time I watch this movie, which isn't really that often, I'm like, oh wow, it just instantly brings me back to the 80s when I was watching these nature shows and whatever, And the guy's voice is pretty, I don't know, just because I grew up with it, it's almost like Hal, you know, from 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's just kind of soothing and just whatever at the same time. So that's kind of another quote-unquote celebrity in a way that they have in the movie, is just the voice, the narrator of this guy. So the negatives being just some of the, I don't know, not particularly, you know, the low budget and the feel to it. You know, it's just got this, you know, I don't, you know, completely hate the low budgetness. I like that about it as well, but that's just one of the drawbacks. And some of Charlie B. Pierce's comedy stuff, which he basically is he actually plays, which I didn't know until I got the Blu-ray. He's the guy who plays Sparkplug. And some of that kind of goofball joke stuff I thought doesn't need to be in the movie. But I mean, it's his movie and he wants to be funny, so let him do it, I guess. But that stuff kind of ruins the movie. And like when the woman's putting the alcohol in her drink, she's like, she does that all the time. I think she even does it earlier in the police station, just like, and it's just like, okay, when she came into audition, it's just like, Charlie's like, okay, go, and she's like, all right, you're perfect. So that's some of the, you know, the negatives of the movie, is just some of the Charles B. Pierce comedy that he actually is pretty much in the center of, is kind of like, I could, you know, kind of do without it. Overall, the movie's got a really kind of cool feel to it. The event scenes are quite shocking, to be honest, and even 37 years later. And I don't really like screaming in movies, so that's one of the things. But you know, the screaming, because all the time they're being terrorized, the girl's always screaming, and that's kind of, I don't know, it kind of always makes me uneasy, you know, when I hear screaming in movies and stuff. But I guess it's supposed to add to the terrorness of it. But like I say, 37 years later, the event scenes, or the scary scenes where the Phantom is terrorizing people parking, are genuinely, you know, still even pretty creepy and pretty effective. So, oh gosh, I'm also reviewing the Blu-ray. I guess 2.5 stars for me for the Town That Dreaded Sundown. You know, it's really cool, and oh, I should also mention that the guy who was the director of photography on this movie was 25 when he did this, which is kind of cool. I know Daniel Pearl, who shot the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think was 23 when he did that. That was like his first movie, I think, out of film school or whatever, Texas Chainsaw. So a 25-year-old actually photographed this movie, and that's kind of a cool little tidbit to know. And the movie's got a cool, whatever, cool. The movie's got a cool, you know, just small town, you know, feel about it, and just out in the country stuff that I like, and just, you know, moody chase scenes that night through the cornfield, and just moody, you know, event scenes in general. So basically this year, onto the Blu-ray review, I'm pretty sure it's this year, or maybe it was last year. Let's take a look-see. It says 2013. So last year, Scream Factory, the offshoot of Shout Factory, was gracious enough to put out a Blu-ray / DVD combo of The Town That Dreaded Sundown. And I don't think I got it until this year, or I don't know when the hell I got it. Regardless, I have it now. And I must tell you that the Blu-ray of this movie obviously is fantastic. I had never seen, I didn't know if, you know, prior to this, if the movie was ever on DVD, widescreen or not. I had never seen it widescreen before. So to be able to see it widescreen and also at this resolution was pretty amazing. And what's cool about the transfer is that, excuse me, very much like Terror Train, you know, if you've seen any of my reviews before, you'll know that I'm a guy who actually doesn't necessarily like digital movies in the, you know, pure crisp digital, you know, look, because having grown up in the 80s and stuff, you know, and all the majority of film transfers at that time were just crap and just all kind of artifacts. So for me, I kind of actually like artifacts to a certain degree in the movie, and I'm very happy to report, which, you know, like I say, a lot of audio-visual aficionados would regard as a negative thing in the movie. I'm happy to report there are instances, you know, maybe beginning or end of reels, where there are like artifacts and stuff. So this movie has the transfer has a little bit, not that often, but every now and then this grindhouse feel when some of them artifacts pop up. So that's kind of cool. But the transfer is actually better than I ever thought it could possibly be. The detail is so great, and the color is so great, and the sound, you know, is mono, whatever, 1976 low budget sound, so the sound doesn't really kick your ass. But obviously, if you're a fan of this movie, or even if you're not, and you just want to experience the Town That Dreaded Sundown in the best way, obviously I would highly recommend the Scream Factory Blu-ray. And of course, like they always do, they're so fantastic where they use the original like art, which is just the best art of all time for this movie. I'm very gracious about that. And some of the special features include audio commentary with, you know, the old film historian crap. And there are some brief interviews with Andrew Prine and Don Wells, and also the guy who shot it, the director of photography. And it actually does come with another Charles B. Pierce film, which is a bonus feature on the DVD only, called The Evictors, which I was going to watch before this review, and then it occurred to me, well, that would be a separate movie review, so watch it later and review it as a separate movie. So I'm like, so I haven't seen The Evictors, and I don't know exactly when it came out, but I mean, that's kind of cool to get, what, a bonus Charles B. Pierce movie with this release. So highly recommended, obviously, or if you're a fan of, you know, the Town That Dreaded Sundown, you probably have it already. But you're going to be very pleasantly surprised with the transfer of that. I can't imagine that movie looking any better than it does. The clarity is absolutely very clear, as clarity should be. So I guess that pretty much does it. Thank you very much for watching the second in the series of just, you know, fall 2014 Spookorama Spookathon horror movie reviews with the lit jack-o'-lantern in the frame. And until the next video, have a great one.